I could say that meeting Sri Ramana has changed my life as the witnessing of an unforgettable sunrise would change one's life as a suffusion of beauty and serenity. I had never encountered a countenance of that expressiveness and carrying an unspoken message like that. Western civilization is too much obsessed with doing and less with experiencing the self. I definitely feel Bhagavan's presence now. I have 2 photographs of his in my room, and frequently our eyes meet. On the occasion of my farewell to the ashram and to him, he looked deeply and wordlessly into my eyes, and I felt that he had given me initiation. So I said to my mother, hold Germany open for me. After 3 years, this madness will be over. Instead of this, I left for India in 1937. I lived 2 years in India by myself in the convent. As a matter of fact, the Mother Superior had vacated her room for me. And the news were so bad, and I got 2 affidavits from wonderful people, Christian missionaries, for both my mother and the woman whom I call my second mother, who lived in our family and brought up us 2 children, my brother and myself. And both these women came to India in 1939. And the nuns had helped me to procure a house for our little family. Now we lived there, 3 women, in a beautiful house with a garden where you could look down from the garden to the plains 7,000 feet below.
Whereabouts was that?
That was in Kodaikanal in the Palani Hills, south of a day's or a night's journey from Madras. And this station was what the English called a hill station. And in this particular hill station were all the Christian missionaries. So there were 2 American schools with missionary children, 1 Swedish school with missionaries from the Church of Sweden. And my main employment was in the English-Irish presentation convent school, girls' school.
You spoke English at that time?
No, I stumbled, and I'm still stumbling today because for 25 years I haven't spoken with anyone who has any English, literary English. And so I speak German all the time and I forget my words. Well, then I stayed for 10 years. You know, the engagement was for 3 years, but it turned out to be 10 years, and I lived in India from 1937 to 47, being employed by the convent. And when my 2 ladies, my mother and my second mother, arrived, the convent permitted me to teach also at these other schools. And I taught at all the schools in Kodaikanal, also the Protestant missionary schools.
Did you need a special certificate at that time to be able to teach, or was your
No.
German certificate good enough?
Yes, that was good enough. As a matter of fact, the American schools asked me to teach the piano. And I said, I cannot teach the piano because I don't have any qualifications, teaching qualifications. And they said, who cares? We have heard you play. I used to accompany my children for the dance in the convent, so they knew I could play. And they said, nobody cares, and we want you. So I had 30 piano pupils in 3 different schools outside of the convent. Yeah. Yeah.
And the climate didn't bother you?
Oh, the climate was ideal. It was like in Los Angeles without the smoke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the climate was a Southern California climate, and we had a monsoon twice a year, and there would be a downpour, like a very violent, vehement downpour for 10, 15 minutes, and then the sun would shine again. Now, I had heard or read a book about a very wonderful Hindu sage called Sri Ramana Maharshi. And I contacted his ashram, which was in Southern California, and I asked whether I could possibly visit them and stay there while we had vacations. The school went on vacation around Christmas time for 2.5 months, when before the war I was able to travel in India, and I was free as a bird. I could travel where I wanted. But once the war broke out, I had to previously announce to the British authorities where I was going, and that was a great nuisance. So I had to predestine, I will be there and there from then to then, and so forth. But before these restrictions were, I contacted this ashram in Tiruvannamalai, South India, south of Madura. Madura is south of Madras. And I had another earth-shaking experience regarding philosophy and religion, because I became familiar with the atmosphere of a Hindu ashram. And Sri Ramana has not written very much. He has written one chief little pamphlet entitled Who Am I? This is the basic existential question. He said, if you can satisfactorily answer this question, then you will be redeemed. You will be enlightened, and you can't go any further. Of course, the Eastern philosophical answer is Tattvam Asi. That art thou. That is, you are God. You know, the identity of the human soul, the eternal soul, and the divine. Well, there was at the time, there were many interesting people, but one of them took pity on me and saw my absolute ignorance. He was a Dutch scholar, Dr. Gualthernus Mees, and his religious name was Ekarasa, which means Eka means one and Rasa is a mood. He who is even-tempered, always in the same mood, which is an ideal situation to live in. Completely balanced out, that is completely integrated. And he was a scholar, and he offered me every day some private instruction. He lived in a little cottage across the street from the ashram, and I received his teachings. It was his original idea to found an academy for comparative religious studies, and for this purpose he had already acquired a piece of land which was to become his own ashram. But later on he himself had some trouble with the British authorities because he was Dutch, and they were also somewhat suspicious of him. Well, then I should say, when I was in India for 2 years, my brother, who was meanwhile, who had finished his medical studies in Bologna, had to leave Italy. And he was with a colleague who also was a son of a lawyer who lived beneath our apartment in Bonn. Those two boys had gone to Italy together, and both of them had desired now to come to India. I was unable to get them another affidavit, and by some magic, some Maharaja gave them 2 affidavits. So I was in the Easter morning service of the American, I don't know whether they were Baptist school auditorium, in the Easter service, when somebody came to my chair and said, "Your brother has just arrived." So my brother had come to Kodaikanal, and I had some American friends there, and they had a so-called compound where all the missionaries lived, and my brother stayed with them. And just at the time was a medical conference of all the non-Indian doctors of South India. And so my brother had the great good fortune at being a guest at this conference and getting to know all these doctors who were running hospitals through the missions. And one of these doctors, Dr. Rambo, American physician, was delighted to engage him. So my brother had found work at one of the mission hospitals, where he learned a lot. And I don't know how many thousand eye operations. They had to do so many eye operations because of the children, the insects settling down on the eyes, and it is all very filthy, and there are eye infections, eye conditions, medical conditions, my brother told me, that you just don't find in Europe. Then the war broke out after 2 years, and shall I tell some more? Shall I tell some more? And the Jewish German doctors were interned together with the German Nazis in the same prisons in India. And that was, of course, intolerable for them. And they all volunteered for the army, for the British Army in India. And then after some negotiations, they became employed, but as civil medical practitioners. Civil medical practitioners. That is, they had to work in military hospitals without wearing a uniform. And that was, again, unacceptable to them because they couldn't obtain the sufficient respect. They were not officers, so the staff did not obey them. And the negotiations went on, and finally they were permitted to wear uniform and have officers' rank. And then my brother worked in a jungle hospital in Burma, and there was no hospital in the jungle, and I don't know what unbelievable number he told me of retransporting these patients until they even hit a base hospital they had to undertake. So he worked with a hill tribe whose language he learned in the jungle, and had the tribesmen as transporters of the casualties. Yeah. And then my brother still stayed in the army when my mother and I left for the United States.
What year?
Excuse me.
What year? During the war?
After the war.
Oh,
After the war, after 45.
Yeah.
After 45. And we had to wait for shipping because there were no ships. We went down to Madras, my mother and I, and we stayed in the YWCA waiting for a ship to go to America.
Did you have somebody in the United States who could...
My mother said, before I die, I want to see my only sister. The only sister lived in Los Angeles. And what does a good daughter do? She takes her mother to her only sister. So that is why we had to go to Los Angeles. And we sold all the goods that we had acquired in the meantime in India. We sold the whole stuff and went to Los Angeles, where my mother's sister lived.
Was the other friend with you then?
No, the other friend had family in New York and went to New York then. Yeah. But we all survived and had a wonderful life with wonderful friends in India during the entire war, while 15 members of the rest of my family perished in Germany.
Now, did the question of Judaism ever came up among your friends that you remained Jewish, right? You did not formally...
Oh yes, I remained Jewish, and these Catholic sisters were very wonderful. Never anybody approached me to convert me, and there were at the convent were serving 1 or 2 Jesuit fathers to say Mass. And I got into a conversation with one once, and he told me, on the Christian point of view, where, from the Christian point of view, they saw, they interpret, I think the prophet Isaiah and Jeremiah also somewhere, that after the appearance of Jesus, the Jews naturally would follow in the footsteps of the Annunciation of the great Redeemer of all. And so I read these texts, but I was not influenced. And they were very tactful, and they never approached me. And I was on very good friendship terms. I also treated the Mother Superior. They were a mixture of English and Irish nuns. I know we celebrated St. Patrick's Day, and they got little 4-leaved clovers from Ireland. And there was no attempt. And on my part, I had experienced much more stimulating Catholicism in Germany than I had in the convent. I was very kind of cooled down, and there was nothing of the Middle Ages. There was no history, there was no romance, there was no art, all the things that had attracted me in Germany. And this was all very sober, and I didn't feel attracted at all.
Did you form any friendships in India at all, male friendships?
Yes, with this Ekarasa. Ekarasa, and we had, we had several, I had several friends, but nothing lasting. Ekarasa had, that was very tragic, he had a heart condition, and he said the allopathic medications that all these missionary doctors prescribed him were too sharp for him they didn't help him. And he, when one could travel again, he left India and wanted to consult the homeopathic physician of the Queen of England. So he went to London and he died on the ship.
When you went to London?
Yeah, yeah.
How old a man was?
He was not very old. He was in his 50s probably. Yeah. Very sad. Well, and then, you see, then my life in America started. And I was very unhappy to have to leave India because it is unspeakably magic. It's a magic country. It's beautiful and it has all the romance that I wanted.
You came to the United States in what year?
47. 47.